Okay, Chris and Terry, it's Bill. Anyway, I just made this video so we could go over the purchase agreement and all the paperwork because there's kind of a lot, and I'd really prefer to sit down with you and go through this. But I figured this would work well. I do these, when I do a market analysis for people, this is what I've been doing lately. I actually just make a video and send the link to them, and they watch it, and then they see I go through all the details on how much their house is worth and why and everything. So it seems to work pretty well. Nobody's complained about it. Everybody seems to like it. So I thought I'd go through this. That was way I can go through the all the paperwork with you, and you can see it. And then if obviously you can back up and watch it again if you miss something, or if you have a question, just pause it and write it down real quick, and I'll answer your questions later. But anyway, just because of in the interest of time, trying to get this done, um, I thought I'd go ahead and do this video. Okay, so anyway, here's the agents involved basically. Today's date, your legal names, which this is the way your names will appear on the deed, um, and then address, township, and so forth, the information about the property. Here are the specific things that we're asking to stay with the home. I asked her about the air conditioning, and she said they would be willing to leave. The seller said they'd be willing to leave two wall or window units with the property. So they did have one in the kitchen, and they covered up that hole. But they said because the house is, 1,000 square feet, put a unit in the back and one in the front of the house, and it'll be fine. So anyway, and then of course I left the sale price blank. I'll look that over later and tell you if I think the house is worth the 83,000 or not. But I wanted to get this to you first. $500 in earnest money. The earnest money is refundable. Now, thing about earnest money, keep in mind that if you decide not to buy the house based on a contingency in the purchase agreement here, and I'll go over some of those, but meaning like if your financing gets denied, you can walk away and you can get your earnest money back. If there's something about the property that you don't like, or I guess not don't like, but if there's something wrong with the property that really bothers you, you can walk away. That's a contingency. If it requires flood insurance, that's a contingency. So you can kill the agreement and get your $500 back. Now, in the previous instance, one of the people who didn't get the house, the guy that screwed up his financing, he didn't get his earnest money back. They kept it because he did something that jeopardized his financing. So if he hadn't gone out and made some purchase, he would have been able to get his earnest money back, but that wasn't the case. So the sellers actually kept that guy's earnest money. So the agent told me about that. So keep that in mind. Um, let's see here. Now you can obviously, I'll email these to you so you can actually go through and read them in detail if you want, but I'll just go over the highlights. Here's your financing information. For instance, another contingency would be that if you don't get an interest rate of say 4% or lower, then you can bail. You can walk away from the property and say, I got a 4.5% interest rate, and that's not what I wrote in here, so I'm not buying the house because I want a better interest rate. Um, Now then, I've asked for them to pay 3% of your closing costs, points, fees, and prepaids. Okay, so they'll pay a bunch of your closing costs. Um, FHA, you're going to finance it at 96.5%. I put 4% in there just because we're not so sure about it, what the rate is right now. The other thing is, this says basically for obtaining financing, you will go to the lender and put in your application for a loan within 5 days after the acceptance of the offer. And everything in here is pretty much going to be days after the acceptance. That's pretty much how it works, or a specific date. Um, so once the offer is accepted, a clock starts ticking, and you need to get certain things done in a certain amount of time. So that'll all be spelled out here. And then 40 days after the acceptance is when you'll get your final approval, and we'll also make 40 days closing. Now, one thing I'll tell you is, I know we spoke on the phone, and I said, I'd probably be looking at closing before Thanksgiving. There's been some changes recently, and I'd forgotten about those. I haven't written an offer in a couple of months. So now there's a new policy, new regulations that um, there has to be, once final approval is given and all the numbers are concrete and everything's done, everything has to sit for 3 days. In other words, you have to receive all the information for 3 days, and then we can close. Typically what happens is all the information comes together either late the afternoon on Thursday and we're closing Friday, or it comes together Friday morning and you get your closing statement and everything, and you know how much you need to bring to closing, and it's all done within 12 to 24 hours of actually closing on the house. Now it's got to be 3 days. If any of that changes in the 3 days or whatever, then you got to start over, and then we got to wait another 3 days. So I think everybody's writing offers at 40 days, which they would normally write them closing in 30 days. So we're doing 40 days now. Basically, that puts you into the first week of December. So, as you talk to your landlord, kind of make adjustments for that, as far as your time frames go and getting out of the apartment and when you'll stop paying rent and so forth. Um, let's see here. The closing fee. Typically, I write that as shared equally, meaning you'll both split that cost. The purchase is not contingent upon you selling another home. A lot of times people have to sell their home before they can buy another one, so you have two closings the same day. A lot of times, if you're selling, possession, like I said, they ask for 5 days after closing. Um, I put by noon on the fifth day. Now, they're not going to give you any money for those days, but if they go past that, there's a penalty basically to them of $75 a day. So if you don't get possession on the fifth, they owe you $75 each day past that. So I've also asked for a boundary survey, asked them to pay for it. That's pretty typical, so that's not going to shock them. Now, you may terminate the agreement if the property requires flood insurance. You may terminate the agreement if the property is basically if you can't use it for what you want to use it for. So this mostly applies to commercial, but in residential, it's not really an issue. Now, if it were commercial and it was zone C3 for commercial retail or whatever it is, and you wanted to use it for C1 purposes or manufacturing or warehouse, and it's different zoning, that's what that means. So this really usually isn't even an issue for residential property. Homeowners insurance. Here's a deadline. Within 25 days after the acceptance of the offer, you need to have a homeowners insurance policy lined up. Now, if any of these things you don't like or you want to change, just let me know and I will do it. Um, or if I missed anything, please say something. Okay, here's inspection information. Buyer reserves the right to have an independent inspection done. You'll have 18 days to get the inspection done, and I can change this, but 18 days to get the inspection done and respond to the seller in writing. So just because you get your inspection done doesn't mean you've met the requirement here. You have to also respond in writing saying, okay, we want these 3 things fixed. And then if you find something like, I don't know, HVAC problems or things like that, and you want to have an actual heating and air guy come out and look at something, or you want to have somebody do a radon test, you can ask for an extension, which we've said, oh, we'll need 7 additional days to do this, or if it's lead-based paint or whatever, to have somebody come out and do an additional inspection. So that's an option there if you run into complications. Now, limited home warranty. A home warranty is basically an insurance coverage policy that if something breaks in the home, this is different from homeowners insurance. That's if the home burns to the ground, okay? This is if something in the home breaks. These are for 1 year. You can always renew them after the first year or before the first year ends. But depending on the house, the condition, and things like that, you'll kind of have to decide whether you want to do that or not. This covers not everything, but it covers most things, and there are some limitations on the policies as to what they'll cover, but they're typically about $400. They're for a year, and they'll cover plumbing leaks, and if the roof leaks, and if the furnace goes bad. Uh, they'll pay up to, I think it's like some of them pay up to like $2,500 or something for a new furnace, and $2,500 for new air conditioning if it's there, stuff like that. So, and we'll ask the seller to pay for that if you want that. So, house that's old like this, I don't know, the mechanics and everything, you probably would do it. um, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and do it and ask for it. And actually, I need to put that amount in there. So, seller's disclosure. Okay, these are documents. I'll cover those. You have received those. You have to check those boxes. So I did get those. I'll forward those to you as well, and I'll show them to you here in a second. Okay, title insurance. You're going to get a title commitment. Okay, that's just the normal thing. You're not getting an abstract. Don't even want to go into that. Owner's policy, lender's title policy. Title insurance is different from homeowner's insurance. Title insurance is something that covers a problem that would occur right now, and later on you would find out about it. Okay, so when they do a title search, they check the public records and they'll see that the seller, current seller, has a mortgage on the property, and it's for it was for originally for $80,000 or something like that, and it was with such and such a bank, ABC Bank or whatever, holds the mortgage. And if there's any other liens against the property, like property taxes, or if there's homeowners association dues that's not paid, they'll put a lien against the property. Now, in the event that the title search person misses something, this insurance policy covers any fallout from that. So if there's a lien for, say, I don't know, I've seen liens where somebody has new windows installed and they put a mechanic's lien against the property for the cost of the windows and say it didn't get paid off. Then that lien will show up on the public record. Now, if somebody misses that and you go and try and sell the property, and I don't know whatever this guy's name is, these people are the Smiths, and the Smiths had the windows put in and they didn't pay for it, that lien is still against your property. And the title company missed it, the title search missed it, the insurance policy will cover paying off that lien so you can sell your property later on. So that's what title policy is. Now you have a owner's policy which protects you. You have a lender's policy which protects the bank. Typically, between the two, there's say a total of say $600 for this property. The owner's policy will be $400. The lender's policy will be $200. So we always ask the seller. I always ask the seller to pay for that one, and you pay for the cheaper one. Um, We'll have Metropolitan. We'll choose the title company. I think that's kind of required now, but we'll use Metropolitan Title unless you guys have a preference. I use them a lot, so they're really, unless you have a preference, we'll just go with that. Taxes will be prorated. Okay, so you'll get a credit for the taxes. Property taxes are paid a year in arrears, meaning that that when you pay your taxes now, you're actually paying the taxes for 2014. So the sellers are going to, sell you this house in, say, December, so they will actually owe almost a whole year's worth of taxes for the time that they lived in the house in the year 2015. But you will pay that bill when it comes next year. So what they'll do is they'll credit you $315 at closing. That'll go into your escrow account with the lender to pay your taxes next year. So that'll be prorated to the day of closing. So if it's 315 and 365 days, and do the math, and it's 295 or whatever. So so that's what that's about. This is irrelevant. Obviously, you can read through all this stuff. This is a lot of typical mumbo jumbo, legal mumbo jumbo. Homeowners Association. This basically, if there's, this is another contingency. If there's something in the homeowners covenants that you don't like, in other words, chain link fences, and you want to put up a chain link fence, but it doesn't allow it, or you want to put in an above ground pool, but the neighborhood doesn't allow it, then you can walk away from buying the home, because I can't put a shed up in my backyard and I need one. So that's something, and I'll send you that doc as well for you to look at, and it's great stuff if you're having trouble sleeping. It'll put you right to sleep, but you do need to read through it carefully and look it over and make sure that you're okay with all the rules and regulations of the neighborhood. So let's see what else. So you have 3 days. This says they have 3 days to get it to us. You have 3 days to read it, and 3 more days to something else. So basically, if you respond and say, I don't want to buy the property because I can't put in above ground pool, or I can't put a shed in my backyard, you have 9 days to figure that out after the offer is accepted. Um, okay, no further conditions. Uh, the sale is not a limited agency transaction, meaning that I'm the agent and I'm not representing both the buyer and seller. I'm only representing one party in this case. That's what they call limited agency. If I were representing you and it were my listing as well, um, that's disclosing a potential conflict of interest. So that's not applicable here. Expiration of the offer, offers, counteroffers, everything is really on time frames. There's expirations to it all. The inspection responses, there's going to be dates and expirations to that as well. It's one of those things where, like here, we're going to set our offer to expire at 10 o'clock tomorrow night. Um, I told her, I said, I asked her if I got it to her at 10 a.m. tomorrow, could she respond by 5? And she said no, because one of them works third shift and the other one works during the day. So it's real hard to get them both and talk to them. So anyway, so she asked me to make it expire at 10 o'clock, which, I mean, what are you going to do? That's a logistical issue. Um, and then your signatures, and you'll see how that works when I send it to you. So let me go back and I will open up another document here. Take just a second. Okay, this is the alternative dispute resolution. Not much to see here. I can't get that to scroll big enough for you to see it all. But anyway, this basically you just sign it. But what this means is, um, and I think it's pretty much right here. This basically says that if we get into a dispute with the other party, and the was it, if it's 3,500, the party with arbitration, however, parties will voluntarily consent. Okay, so if it's under $3,500, if the dispute's over 2 grand or less than 3,500, you agree to go to arbitration at the Better Business Bureau and honor the decision of the arbiter. So that's an informal court. So you go and resolve whatever issue it was. Say like the guy who lost his earnest money because he screwed up his financing because he went out and bought something or did something dumb with his credit. Um, he could have gone to arbitration and said, hey, I need to get my earnest money back. And they say, no, you're not getting it back because you went out and because of your, you know, actions, you killed this deal. So we're keeping the earnest money. And then the arbiter, and he would say why, and they'd say why. And then the arbiter would say, okay, they get to keep the earnest money. So, so that, and it's just an informal court. Um, but it also keeps you from going to court at $200 an hour with an attorney. And that's one way to get, simple, cheap issues resolved. Now, if it's above 3,500, I think, or higher, then you have to go to court. So let me pull up the other one. This one I'll send you to sign as. Okay, so here's the lead paint acknowledgement. So what this is this is a disclosure that the seller is basically saying they have no knowledge of lead paint in the property. They have no reports of lead paint in the property. If you go to the property and you prove there's lead paint, you don't have to buy the house, but you can't hold them liable or say they were trying to defraud you because they're able to play dumb unless you can prove they knew about it or unless you can prove that there was a report and that they had been given the report. Which, if there was a lead-based paint test done and they were involved, it would be written in the report and it's documented and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, so basically what they do here is they say, well, I have no idea. Now the house was built before 1978. There probably is lead paint in the house, but as far as sellers go, and you would be doing the same thing if you're selling a house, is saying, you know what, I have no idea. So, Mr. Buyer, if you want the house, you better check it out yourself, because if you buy it and you don't like the lead paint, you didn't check it, that's on you. Um, so here you'll just initial some of these things. You'll initial uh, D, E, and I think 2 if you want to waive the inspection, or if you want another 10-day opportunity to actually conduct a lead paint test in the house. So those are your options. And then basically you just sign this one as well. So you'll sign that. Let me pull up another one here. Okay, so this is the seller's residential disclosure. This is basically where the seller says, here's the condition that the property is in to the best of my knowledge. Okay, so if you look here, your options on each of these items is not included, or there isn't any. It's defective, it's not defective, or you do not know. Now, like the dryer and the washer, I tell my sellers, if you're not sure or you're not 100% sure that it's working and that it's gonna be working after closing, then say you don't know. Now, you couldn't get away with that with the washer and dryer because you do your laundry every week. So you'd have to say if it's working, you need to say it's not defective. But like a dry basement, a basement is the basement dry or does it get water? Do not know. You never guarantee a dry basement. So even if it's never had water in it, because if 6 months down the road it rains, flood, and then the buyer will come back on the seller. Now, on the buyer's from the buyer's perspective on this, you need to look through this very carefully and look at all these things, because if there is something in here that they mark as defective or do not know, you need to make sure, one, you have it checked out if they're not sure, or two, if they say it's defective, you're okay with it, or we write into the offer that they agree to fix it if you want it fixed. Because if you go and get your home inspection done and they said the washing machine was defective and you didn't put anything in the initial offer, you were told ahead of time that the washing machine didn't work. So then the inspection comes. The inspector says, "Well, I turned on the washing machine and it didn't work. It didn't fill up or it didn't drain or whatever. It didn't run through its cycle. So there's a problem with the washing machine." You cannot go back to the seller and expect them to pay for it at that time because you didn't ask for it initially and they told you it was broken. So, basically it's going to be, well, Mr. Buyer, you went ahead and wrote me an offer knowing that the washing machine was defective and now you want me to fix it? No, that's not part of our deal. I agreed to sell you the house with a defective washing machine and you agreed to buy it with a defective washing machine. So anything that would be marked defective and stuff like that, or any of these yes no questions, just read through this carefully, because once you sign that, you can't go back on the seller if they've disclosed anything to you. Here, they say they're not sure on this one for the electrical service. So obviously, just make sure we check that out at the time of the inspection. Um, Now here's the roof. Okay, so they don't know how old the roof is. They're saying it doesn't leak. They don't. There's no present damage to the roof. Is it one layer? Is there more than one layer? No. Okay, so they're saying no. So obviously you just verify those things with the inspector. Um, Hazards, all this stuff, you'll just have to read through it. I know this is probably gonna make you go buggo, but this is home buying. And then you'll sign these, and then the sellers will sign them again at closing down here on the bottom, basically saying that from the time I sign this on June 9th to closing today, nothing has changed. Okay, so that's what that's all about. All right, so I'm going to pull up one more document, I think, and then we'll be done. Okay, so this is the general office policy form. This one also talks about the $175 commission fee that we charge, and explains that. This also talks about ethics and things like that. We're not going to put a sign on your back that says "kick me," things of that nature. And then all I'll need is initials and signatures on this page. This one says the rep has presented a home warranty, asked if we would be insured. Okay, this is if you're does not preclude a buyer from requesting. Okay, I think this is if you're selling a house. Because you can get a home warranty ahead of time when you list the property, and then it gets placed on the house when you sell the property. So yeah, that's pretty simple. I'll send you all these. You can look them over. Sorry to bombard you with paperwork and everything, but this is just kind of the way it goes. I don't know, things just get more complicated as time goes on. But I wanted to go over that stuff with you, or at least let you hear it. And if you have questions, just write them down. You can type them up, send them in an email, or you can just call me tomorrow or whatever. So anyway, I'll send this to you here pretty soon. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.